What is good, everybody? This is the OG Bronc Nuts from the 719 West. And tonight it's not a football video, but I want to talk some conspiracy theories, right? Because there's a new one that's kind of surfacing that I've been digging into a little bit, and just to see where things lead, see if it connects to any of the other suspicions that I have. I think we all know that the mainstream media and the press do not tell us the truth. The government does not tell us what we're supposed to know. And the truth is the real news is on the internet now. It's not on Channel 5 or 9 or 12 or Fox Business or CNN. It's on none of those things. So tonight I want to talk a little bit about the, what's up, Steel 58? I want to talk a little bit about these last two shootings that happened, the call for more gun control, and just let you know how some research that I've done has connected the shooter's father to MK Ultra. Now, I'm going to lay that out for you here pretty soon, but I want to first tell you how I arrived at where I'm at today. After 9/11, actually really after John F. Kennedy's shooting, I was always interested in the JFK shooting, and I always thought to myself, man, that JFK story just don't make a whole lot of sense. The magic bullets and people finding the spent gun shell casings on the bridge, and how Jack Ruby fit into the whole thing, and Lee Harvey Oswald doing all of this with a primitive really rifle with a marginal scope, through foliage, moving target, under pressure, heart beating. I mean, the whole story just didn't make any sense to me. And then when 9/11 happened, I initially had thought, man, just like anybody else, we got attacked by terrorists. And, look, it had always been the Ayatollah, Gaddafi, somebody messing with the United States. And I think that we'd had enough of people in the Middle East just poking the bear here in America. And then 9/11 happens, and I believed it. Well, then right after that, I started questioning. I was like, how did two buildings that have never, two steel structured buildings have never fallen to the ground in the history of mankind? And then on that day, the first one, the second one, and the third one all fell. And not only did they fall, they fell in a nice, neat little pile. And they, the pancake theory that they were telling us about. And I started reading the 9/11 Commission report. I read it a couple of times, actually. And there were so many things in this story that didn't make sense. And we're not going to get into that today. And that's a whole nother video. But just how I got led up to today. And then I really started questioning the Aurora shooting. And then I started questioning Sandy Hook, because it didn't look right. Like all the research, you never see any kids. The coroner couldn't tell you how many boys, how many girls. He was very flustered. We never saw any blood. We all of a sudden, saw a shotgun come out of the back of this car. Next thing you know, it was an AK-47. People were running through the woods. Witnesses were reporting multiple shooters. And we were now to believe that this kid, I think his name was Adam Lanza, who was autistic, and I've spent some time around some autistic children, shoots his mom in the face twice, then drives to Sandy Hook, murders all those kids that we never got to see any of them. A lot of the parents were linked to acting studios. I'm not saying kids didn't die. I don't know if they did. I mean, I'm not Alex Jones out here telling you that nobody died at Sandy Hook. I don't know if they did or if they didn't. But I think that there is a connection between all of these. So what I found out in the whole Sandy Hook thing is his dad, right, who he worked for. Now, him and the Aurora shooter, both of their dads had very precarious positions of things that they did for work. So one of them was the head accountant for GE, the world's largest company. Right? And he's the head accountant. So think about all the things that you could do and rig, and not to mention that GE hasn't paid a single dime in taxes in, I think, the last 20 years. It always makes us they don't make any money. So this kid's dad was linked to this, and I was like, wow, that's one heck of a position to really be to have for the government. I mean it really is, because that's who it really GE is. It is the government. And so then I thought, well, what about the other kid's dad? Well, he was the head of FICO. So when you go to get a house, he was the head of the guy managing and selling what your credit score was, which would affect whether you could buy that house or car or whatever you were looking in to get. So not only was he the head of FICO, shortly after that, he was connected in the LIBOR interest rate scandal. Now, for LIBOR stands for like London International Banking Exchange Rate. So essentially what this is when two big super banks, when you're talking about central banks, when they want to exchange money with each other, there's a rate that they pay each other, and that's called the LIBOR rate. The LIBOR rate affects student loans, housing, car loans, everything. And what they found out is they were cheating by trillions of dollars, like stupid amounts of money. So the other kid's dad, that's what he does. And I'm like, wow, two dads that have made it to really like the pinnacle of their field just have these crazy sons that all of a sudden go on to use mass shooting rampages. Like, what's going on here? Didn't really make a lot of sense to me. So, whatever. I mean, I got to accept it, right? This is what the news and this is what the mainstream media has told us, which my point is they're lying to us, right? So now we come to the latest shooting. Now let's skip the fact that I think that the Las Vegas shooting stinks to high hell. There was lots of people who said they saw multiple shooters all wearing black. There's all kinds of questionable videos showing these shooters. Meanwhile, they say it's one guy who gets off like 3,800 rounds. There's 15 spent shell casings in the hotel room. And anybody who shot a fully automatic weapon knows how exhausting it is and how hot the barrels get. It would have caught the curtains on fire, the floor on fire. We saw a little pool of blood, a few spent casing shells. This was the guy, right? What was his name? Stephen, whatever his name is, a friggin' Momo, shot out the windows and the Harvest Film Festival or whatever it was, the concert. That whole situation stinks like crazy to anybody who wants to dig into it. It's ridiculous. And now we have the latest too. Now the one in Ohio seems pretty organic to me. Just seems like a crazy kid. I mean, they kind of knew he was crazy. I mean, this kid had a list of girls he wanted to rape that had rejected him, people that he wanted to skin alive, people that he wanted to torture, people he wanted to murder. This book got exposed. The authorities found out about it. And here we did nothing, and the problem festered, and, look, I mean, who knows what's going on, really? I mean, high school, there's a lot of peer pressure, there's a lot of bullying going on, and then you add social media on top of that, and now there's bullying when people get home. I mean, some kids can really just go down the wrong road, and the next thing they get on psychiatric drugs that are, they're really messing them up more. And so, I don't know. I think that was a situation with the Ohio shooter. I don't think this was a false flag. I don't think this was a government black op. But the one in El Paso don't smell right, y'all. It doesn't. Anybody doing any research on this? I'm about to give you a little nugget from some research that I've been doing that is very coincidental, just like all of the other coincidental crazy things, 9/11, JFK, all of these things that we've had to believe. You're like, okay, magic bullet. Buildings fell at the speed of gravity, but we had some Air Force pilots, at Langley Air Force Base nearby. But where were our fighter jets, the most powerful country in the world? We saw no jets in the sky. And Dick Cheney, the vice president, he was first in command right here in Colorado Springs at NORAD. Had never happened before in the history of the presidency. But we have to believe all of these things that don't add up, that just seem like, wow, this is weird. It happened on this day. And that's just a tenth of it, y'all. There's a million more. So here's what I found out about the El Paso shooting. So the shooter's name gets released, and this kid's name is Patrick Cruces, right? So he is the responsible kid for 22 dead inside Walmart. Apparently he cased the place. He had some sort of Instagram or Facebook where he had listed that he liked Elizabeth Warren. I mean, people that were for gun control. And I think it was Elizabeth Warren, maybe Bernie Sanders, and Kamala Harris. He was definitely listed he was a Democrat. After the shooting, they flopped that, and it now says he's a Republican. So, hey, never let a good crime or never let a good tragedy go to waste. I mean, who knows what's really going on and if that really happened, but if it did, it wouldn't surprise me. But what was crazy about this whole thing was I said, okay, Patrick Cruces, I got to look into see what's his kid's dad do, because that's what I've looked into all of the other ones that were very questionable to me. Dad, brothers, I mean, let's look into see what they do for a living. So, funny as it may be, this Patrick Cruces' dad's name is John B. Cruces, and this guy is involved in what's called infused being therapy. I had to write that down because I've never even heard of that before, in Dallas, Texas. Now, infused being therapy. So I'm like, what the hell? Infused, what is that? And where does he work? So he was formerly of this place called the Timberlawn Mental Health System, right? Now this place, this Timberlawn Mental Health System, is owned by a Fortune 500 company, which is Universal healthcare services. Now, universal healthcare services have been looked into a lot. There's a lot of people questioning universal healthcare services, which, again, a Fortune 500 company, but they had this small sister company called Timberlawn Mental Health Services. And the shooter's dad, John B. Cruces, he was one of the top guys there, right? One of the top 2 or 3 guys that worked at this place. Now, this was a hospital that was shut down, a mental hospital. It was shut down in 2018 for rape, prostitution, I think child abuse, just regular abuse, and they were a recommended or advised care type of place. So it was a place where they could really prescribe lots of drugs, lots of antidepressants to people. And there's suspect that these types of drugs and these types of things that are being used that were named against this hospital, that, you know, they had to shut this thing down because the story was too blown up and too big. Those are linked to MK Ultra mind control. So I dug a little deeper. So I said, all right, so his dad worked there. I don't know. I guess that's kind of a weird thing. I mean, your kid's messed up to where he's just going to go murder 22 people. But yet your dad is in the mind control business or the brain control or therapy business. And he couldn't even help his own kid, didn't even see this coming. So it turns out that John B. Cruces is also an associate and a good friend of Colin A. Ross at this Timberlawn Health Care System Service. Now, here's what's important about this guy named Colin A. Ross. One, he was the head lead doctor for schizophrenia, people that would mutilate their body, people that were committing suicide, people that were multi-personalities. He was the head guy for all of this, and he was interviewed and said he admitted, quotations, and I'm not going to give you the exact quote, I'm going to paraphrase it for you, but he admitted that this job that he had in working with these people was the gateway to his studies in satanic cults and his conversion to this, to satanic cults, and his firsthand recollections and interactions that he had with his patients. So I thought, that's kind of weird, right? I mean, he said he's into satanic cults, and it's because of these patients and whatever. So this Ross is good friends with the shooter's dad, Cruces. I'm like, wow, these are 2 people that are, operating with some crazy, sick human beings. Who knows what kind of experiments are being run, possible government experience. So, I don't know, still not too weird for me. So I take it another step forward. So Ross gives in an interview a lot of credit as his mentor being a guy named Sidney Gotthieb. It's like Gotthieb. Now, Sidney Gotthieb, known atheist, is also at the time the head of the CIA mind control. He is the lead on the MK Ultra program. Okay? He also was known publicly to do lots of testing for the Army, for the government, by providing like unsuspecting people with LSD, acid trips, and just, recording what they would do, what they would say, how they would react. So it's kind of known that MK Ultra mind control has been around for a long time. So I'm starting to see a pattern here with all these shooters that I think are red flags. I think the story's not as the media would tell you. There's a pattern that's developing here with all of their fathers. And the kind of jobs they have are just bizarre. Now, you'd think the mainstream media would say, let me get this straight. The founder, the lead head, spearhead of the project for the government of MK Ultra was a very good friend and mentor to Colin Ross, who was the head of this hospital that got shut down for corruptness, for all of these mental crazy disorders. And his best associate just happens to be the shooter of the father that went into Walmart in El Paso? Bullshit! Like nobody's even questioning this? I mean, it's unbelievable that the government will go to the extent to lie they will. And the mind is easily tricked. It really is. And especially when they have control of the mainstream media. And that's why the mainstream media today, most Americans think that it's more destructive to humanity than the bankers and big corporations. And that's saying something, because bankers are doing a lot of destruction to this country, and so are big corporations. But the media is probably doing the biggest amount of destruction. Nothing is the truth. Nothing is what it seems. It's really not. And it's not even hard to see. It's really not even hard to see, because a lot of these things are becoming fact. Right? I was telling my family 3 or 4 years ago, Deutsche Bank is the next bank that's going to go out of business. It's happening right now. They're the next one that's going to default because they got mountains of derivatives. I had called out Jeffrey Epstein and the Lolita Express many years before this guy got arrested, and his connections to the Clintons and his connections to the Podestas. There's some bad people involved in this world. And I think that that's going to be the biggest news story in the history of mankind, when the whole Epstein Black Book and all these documents that got unsealed, and when this all comes out in big names, I mean, heads are going to roll. If this guy, somehow they keep him alive, and they should. He should be watched by 5 different groups of people, cameras 24 hours a day, no possible way for him to hurt himself, and we need this guy in the courtroom. And who knows, maybe, look, he supposedly was almost found dead the first night he was in jail. Somebody wants him dead. Maybe he wants himself dead. I don't know. He was expecting to get bail and he never got it. But we definitely weren't told the truth by the media on that. You don't think they knew? Of course they knew. They didn't report on that story, barely reported on that whole Epstein story. So things are about to get really interesting. There's been a lot of lies told, and there's one thing that's for sure about a Ponzi scheme or a book of lies, whatever. It's hard to keep up after a while, and sooner or later it's going to break through. So let's get to some of the comments. I appreciate all you guys coming into the stream tonight. Sergeant AR-10, Steel 58, Stock Jockey, Gary Holland, Mohammed, #1 Broncos fan. I'm sorry for any of you that came tonight looking for a Broncos video. There's certainly going to be many more of those to come. This just kind of seemed like an important subject to talk about, because right now, it's the whole problem, reaction, solution to getting something that they want done to alter the Constitution, which I think is a solid document that served America, served the masses for 200 years. And I don't believe in gun control because, you look, Britain tried to do it. And well, they have done it, and they've had mass murders up to 30, as large as 30 people from knife attacks. People get a semi and drive to the front door of a church or a school. They're going to figure out a way, create a bomb. They're going to figure out a way to do whatever somebody wants to do if they really want to go do this sort of things. I don't think, gun control guns are the problem here. I really don't. And look, do I like seeing all of these things happen? No, but I think that they're happening. Planned happenings. I really do. Go look into what happened at Sandy Hook and Las Vegas, those shootings. It just stinks to high hell. It stinks so bad, the official story. And you got the mayors and the sheriffs just mumbling and stumbling and bumbling with FBI and CIA watching them and breathing down their neck with every word they say. None of the stories make sense. They're all just a bunch of lies, and it's all about let's cause this big, problem. And we'll get all the sheeple, all the dumb people, the 80%, the people who aren't awake, they'll just hear it on the news and they'll say, yeah, we can't have this anymore. We got to get rid of these guns. And fortunately, these people are voters. This country can't afford to have the guns taken away. We really can't. The AR-15 and the AK-47s are not the problem. They're really not. And people want to say, oh, they're assault rifles, they're this, they're that. They're not. Assault rifles, or what you would call an assault rifle or a war weapon, it's a fully automatic weapon, right? Like the M16 or the AR-AKs that are fully automatic, or tracers, those types. This is not what the general public has. You have a special license to have this. So there's no, look, these guns, you have to pull the trigger one time, one round goes off. Same thing with a shotgun that I'm hunting pheasants with my buddies 10 feet away. If I was crazy, I'd just turn the gun and shoot all of them. There's nothing they could do. But I'm not crazy. I'm a responsible gun owner. So guns aren't the problem, and I'm telling you, we outlaw them, and they start to take these guns. Criminals will be the only ones that have it. There's so many guns out on these streets. Even if they tried to outlaw guns, it'd probably take 100 years to get them. Guns aren't the problem. We need to reform these schools. We need to get these kids off drugs, get them off meth, quit having these pharmaceutical companies push stuff at them, and we got to get back to neutral. And I think this is a satanic way of doing things. I really do. And it's sad to see that our country has come to this. But It's the whole reason why I thought marijuana, which is a business I'm involved in here in Colorado, it's been illegal forever. And why? I mean, I don't really think it's killing people. It's not. It's helping lots of people. I have lots of patients. I mean, real patients. I've seen it help people with my own two eyes. Are there people out there just like smoke weed? Yeah. So what? People out there just like to drink. And the only reason that it's been illegal is because the jail system, which are privatized, I mean, they're like big hotels, they're full of people that have committed crimes for smoking pot. I mean, you gotta have laws for people to keep the hotels full, don't you? No vacancy costs people money. They're in there for nonviolent crimes, for smoking weed. They have two ounces on them, and they got caught near a school. And they're in there doing 30, 40 years. I mean, it's crazy. And so to think that, how messed up of people we do really have in this world, in this country, and that the jail spots are being taken up by people it shouldn't be taken up by. And the only reason that pot was illegal for so long, it's too easy to grow. It's a weed, right? I mean, I grow it. I understand what's involved in it. Now, it's easy to grow marijuana. It's hard to grow good marijuana that you can sell. But you can grow marijuana in your backyard that'll be smokable. Believe me, you might have to smoke a lot of it, but it's going to get you high. It's going to get the job done if you really want to. So, look, if you want to ask somebody, go make me a bottle of whiskey. Most people don't even know the first 4 or 5 things you need to buy to make a bottle of whiskey. You don't need yeast and sugar and some mash and some corn. They don't know that what you need. A whiskey still. They don't know what you need. But if you give somebody 3 pot seeds and you put it in their hand, they don't even speak English. At the very least, they know they need sunshine, water, and dirt, right? So it's too easy to grow. They don't want people self-medicating. They want you buying their drugs. Big business, right? The pharmaceutical companies are making millions and millions of dollars donations to these campaigns. And so now we've got the cat out of the bag on marijuana. But the whole thing is just like, it's all a big rigged game, and we're just forced to live in it. It sucks. It really sucks. Because this ain't no democracy, y'all. It's not. Not unless we do something about it, and we start doing something about it right now. You gotta start pushing back. Don't be a sucker with your head in the sand and believe that we need gun control, because we don't. Now, am I for some, Trump kind of like, he said he was going to do something. He's got to do something. Maybe he's got to bend a little bit. And I think his bending was, let's do some mental background checks on people. And, if they're found to be a detriment to themselves or others around them, we're going to expedite where we can take these weapons from them. That sounds good. It really does. And the purist in me says, yeah, why wouldn't we do that? It makes total sense. But then it can become to where when you just go to the doctor to get a physical, and the doctor says, how you been feeling? And you just joke around. You just say, doc, I don't know. Some days I just feel like ending it all. You didn't mean that. But the doctor's like, oh, really? Tell me more. Meanwhile, he writes that down. So you said something, and they took it out of context, and the next thing you know, you can't get a gun. That's where something like that can lead, and that is concerning to me. Now, there's people out there that say, oh, Bronk Nuts, you too worried about it. Why? Why am I too worried about it? Because I've already seen all of the other lies that they've been able to tell us throughout history, from, like I said, JFK to 9/11 to the Boston bombing to Sandy Hook to the Las Vegas shooting to, and there's so many other ones in there that the stories just don't make sense. And there's lots of people who question the moon landing. I don't really know. I haven't really dug into the moon landing, whether we do, because I don't know, it's just not worth my time. But I do find it odd that we went there, 1960 something, 65, and we've never gone back. And now all of a sudden people at NASA say, oh, we destroyed the technology to go to the moon. Yet I heard an interview from a guy who was a NASA scientist said, no, we actually ran the whole thing on a 32-bit hard drive. And all of a sudden they said they've smashed all the technology, it's gone. And it would be too costly to put it back together. Are you kidding me? Too costly for NASA? Nothing's out of their price range. So this was the excuse they give. And then the moon landing, the tapes that people want to analyze, oh, they don't have them anymore. They taped over them. Wait a minute. We taped over them by accident. You taped over the moon landing. You friggin' momos. Because you're either the dumbest people in the world to not have those in one of the most safest vaults in the world, to document this, monumental thing that mankind has supposedly done. And you taped over them. There's no more tapes. I mean, the whole thing don't make no sense. Except people just believe it. Right? Just like they believe, on 9/11, the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania, where's the plane? Where is the freaking plane? Where's the suitcases, the bodies, the blood? The plane parts. Where is all this? Because I've seen a few plane crashes. There's always plane parts. There is a mess of stuff for miles. Where was it? In Pennsylvania. We didn't see nothing. We saw a little black hole in the ground, a small one, that was just burning and smoking like it looked like a grass fire had happened, and a little indention in the ground. And people were asking where the plane was, and they said, "You get it? Wait on. Get closer. You ready?" It evaporated. You got to be out your damn mind to believe something hokey like that. Right? I mean, I still haven't heard. I mean, that's the whole one with the passengers were, let's roll. They was talking to, let's roll. Let's go jump these box cutter dudes. And this plane crashed, and nothing. Then how about Muhammad Atta's passport just trickling down through all the fire and the wreckage? They found it right there. Sure, here it is. Here's a guy. This is his passport. We found it on the street. What? I mean, so many things are just so weird and don't make any sense. And it's lie after lie after lie, and yet people still believe it. People are believing it. They are. Because you ask most people, how many buildings fell to the ground on 9/11? I'm asking y'all right now. Say it out loud. I'm not going to hear you, but say it out loud. And tell me the truth. Did you say 2? Because if you said 2, you're wrong. It was 3. And if you didn't know about Building 7, the question is, why didn't you know? I'll tell you why you didn't know. Because in the 9/11 Commission report, Building 7 is not even mentioned one time. This is a 49-story building. Let's think about what that is. That's taller than any building in Colorado Springs, and it's taller than most buildings in Denver. A 49-story building fell on 9/11, built out of steel. Keep in mind, no steel structure in the history of mankind. In the history of mankind, let me repeat it one more time. No steel structure in the history of mankind has ever fallen to the ground because of fire. And there's been hundreds of them on fire. One of them burned in Tokyo for about 28 hours. Didn't fall to the ground. This thing, these buildings, all 3 of them. So on that day, we had the first building that fell to the ground because of fire in the history of mankind. And then an hour and a half later, we had another one. And then later that night, we had a third one that didn't even get hit by a plane, supposedly. And all 3 of them leased by the same guy, big insurance policy, Larry Silverstein, and all of them fell to the ground at the speed of gravity in 10 seconds. You take a bowling ball and you drop it off the top of the World Trade Center, hit the ground in 10 seconds. Those buildings fell in 10 seconds. Now, can you believe the pancake theory? Can you believe that it went boom, 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 boom? Because physics tells you that there's a moment in time, whether it's a millisecond, that when this hits this, to collapse, to go to this, there's no movement. It's exactly still for that fast. And then it goes through. So if you have that fast, that fast, that fast, that fast, that fast, that fast, times all of those floors, the building can't fall in 10 seconds. That's just physics, y'all. You got so many people questioning it right now. You have all of the fire departments in New York City are now together and writing a petition and want the whole thing reopened. Because they want to know what those secondary explosions are, which were called squibs, by the way. That's how they take buildings down. Jesse Ventura, an ex-Navy SEAL and governor, who specialized in demolition of buildings, bridges, says they use thermite. Thermite was found on the metal. You had all these kids from Israel that were there that were art students, boxes of fuses. I mean, there's all kinds of weird things that happened on 9/11 that don't make any sense, and we got attacked by Lottie Dottie. Because I don't know if bin Laden even had anything to do with it. Was he just the modern day Lee Harvey Oswald and got framed for all of this? Was he the modern day, what's his face, Patrick Cruces, who went into the Walmart? I mean, how do we know he was even the guy? There's several eyewitnesses all over YouTube that were there. They said, no, he was not the only shooter. There was 4 guys. 4 guys all dressed in black. The same thing people reported at Sandy Hook, seeing guys that ran up through the woods, right? Camouflage, black. They ran up through there. Same thing people reported at the Orlando nightclub. Multiple shooters, guys dressed in black. Same thing they reported in Las Vegas. There's videos that show guys dressed in all black running atop across the buildings. People that recorded on their cell phone. But all of these shootings are one gunman and dead man tell no lies. Right? I mean, the whole thing is just, it's absolutely bizarre that they're able to create something to happen and in turn politicize it within. I mean, you saw the shootings that happened in Sandy Hook. Hillary Clinton was literally calling for gun control, and the blood wasn't even cold on these people's bodies. So, I mean, it's like they just striking while the iron's hot. Let's get to some of the comments. Gary Harlan, especially Sandy Hook. Yeah, the whole thing at Sandy Hook doesn't seem right. I mean, we got a coroner that couldn't tell you, the reporters, how many boys, how many girls. Here's the other thing. This kid's autistic, right? I mean, autistic kids are so dependent on their parents. And this kid shot his mom in the face, right? 2 times. Now, it was known that his mom took him to the gun range and whatever. I mean, maybe he was highly functional autistic. I mean, I don't really know a lot about him. But supposedly shot his mom in the face twice, drove to the school. And then he went in there and executed all these kids and teachers. But the crazy thing is, he didn't miss anybody. He didn't shoot while his heart's beating out of his chest, because I've shot some big game, some elk, where I know I can't get any trouble. Like, I got a tag, a license to do this. I ain't going to jail for life. And even shooting an elk, my heart is beating out of my chest. It's called buck fever, right? So think about what that's going to be like, what that feeling's like when you're about to shoot another human being. It's got to be crazy elevated heart rate. But yet, this person who had autistic was calm enough to hit all of these targets. The coroner says that most of them were shot multiple times, 3, 4, and 5 times. There wasn't one single survivor other than the people who got out of their life. In other words, there wasn't one person who got shot in the leg and came limping out of there and went to the hospital and got healed. Not one person. Everybody's dead. We don't see any blood. We don't see any ambulances. We don't see any gurneys, them hauling people out. People reporting multiple shooters, multiple gunmen. It's the whole same bag of tricks. And with today's animation and green screens, I mean, who knows what kind of tricks they could really pull. But here tonight, I mean, with the shooter in El Paso, I link the guy who founded MK Ultra mind control program for the CIA. He is a CIA asset who mentored this guy Colin A. Ross, who was best friends with John Cruces, who was the shooter's father. I mean, is that coincidental? Is it coincidental that the shooter's father in the Sandy Hook shooting worked for, I believe it was GE? And it was either, I think it maybe actually was the other way around. I think it was the Aurora shooting's father worked for GE as their top accountant. And the other one, the Sandy Hook shooter's father, he was the head of FICO. So, when you go get your house, anything, your FICO score, your scores, credit score. He was the head of that, and then he also was tied up in the LIBOR interest rate scandal, which was one of the biggest, largest heists, money-wise, the nation has ever seen. I mean, for all those of you who don't know what LIBOR is, you missed the beginning of the stream. It stands for the London International Banking Offer Rate. And it's basically the interest rate that 2 central banks trade money to each other. Well, they lied about that rate. And so basically they're doing like an old school gangster casino. They were skimming money because that rate dictates the rates we pay for school loans, for cars, houses, everything, credit cards. It dictates everything. So we're paying one price, but they're trading between each other at a different price. So the whole thing was screwy, and that's what this kid's dad did. So these are big jobs that all of these people do, and I've always questioned, were they drugged? I mean, was this Adam Lanza kid drugged to where, I don't know, he was programmed or something? They programmed him to go shoot these people, and then, I don't know, was he a patsy? Did he have help? Did real people who were black ops go in and actually do all the shooting, and they framed Lanza? because there was the whole story. We saw the TV cameras where they pulled the shotgun pump. I think it was a pump, kind of like a riot gun type of deal, out of the back of the trunk. But the next thing you know, they said he used an AR-15. The whole thing is just, it's sketchy. Some people in government want to do away with our freedoms. Unfortunately, Gary, I think that's a lot of people in government, maybe even most. I mean, think about it. It's kind of like, really all the government is a gang, right? They're no different to me than the 5 borough mafia families that ruled New York City. So if I'm the head of the Lucchese crime family and you're the head of the Gambinos and somebody else is the head of Lucchese, whoever, and we get to the sit down, the 5 bosses. At the end of the day, what we want to make sure is that we remain in power, our family's taken care of. And, look, if a few of our soldiers got to die in the process, who cares? They ain't our family. I mean, they're not one of us. So it'll be some low-life guys, not made guys. And so I see that as the way really our government is, and I think that the media is tied up into it. I think we have a worldwide pedophilia problem that runs so deep and probably all the way to the Vatican that's just sicker than anybody can possibly imagine. And I think that this is, I think it's all going to come out. I think this is all going to come out eventually, because as long as Epstein stays alive in jail, sooner or later, all those documents are going to be released, and I think there's some big names in those documents. There's certainly big names on his flight records. And, and then you got Slick Willie saying, well, I never been to Epstein Island, even though he was on a plane register like 26 or 27 times. I mean, no reason for him to lie to us, right? I mean, Slick Willie ain't gonna lie to the American people. Neither is Hillary. They're not liars. Get a hold of yourselves, y'all. Government is corrupt and Trump is taking away the gun rights right in front of your eyes. Argo, I mean, he really's not. I mean, if you think about the concession that he gave, it's really to do more thorough background checks. It's not to ban any weapons or write any type of legislation for that. I mean, Trump is pro-gun. He's pro-constitution. And so, I'm not worried about Trump taking away my gun rights. What I'd be really worried about right now is if Hillary Clinton was president. Because if she was, I know they'd be probably already knocking on my door trying to get these things or just cuff me and take me to jail. I'm sure I actually wouldn't even be able to talk to y'all tonight on YouTube about this. As a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure YouTube's going to shadow ban this live stream anyway, but I don't care. YouTube can kiss my entire ass, all of it. Argo, I agree, man. The NRA, they're the people who push for the background checks, the Constitution, and the rights should not be infringed. Look, I'm a firm believer in that. The Constitution, even though it's an ancient document, has served the masses well in this country for a couple hundred years. So it's not perfect, and no document that we could write would ever be perfect, because we're all going to have disagreements on what we think is right, what was wrong, what's tolerable in society, what's not. So there's no way we'll ever have a single document that we're all unified on. So I think the Constitution, the way it was written, it was well thought out. It was well planned. People make the argument back then, they always say, oh, Bronknuts, I know you love guns, and I know you like Trump, and I know you're a Republican, and you're a big hunter, an outdoorsman, but nobody needs to have an AK-47. And I'm like, yes, they do. And he's like, why do they need to have that? Because that Constitution, that Bill of Rights and all that was written back when all they had was ball and muskets. They never figured we were going to have 30-round clips and AK-47s. And I'm like, yeah, well, I never figured you were going to have Scud missiles and B-1 bombers and stealth fighter jets and all of the things that the government have. So I'd say in the arms race, the people are losing. We're losing because all we have is AK-47s. Now, what's going on the border in Mexico? Where I live in Colorado, that ain't very far from here. I mean, you can be in El Paso from here in 15 hours. That's not that very far. You stay on one highway to get there the whole way, I-25, right? You just take it all the way straight to the border of Mexico. So it's not, very far before this could actually get in my backyard, drug cartels. You think they're going to come, mess with people with pistols? No. They're going to have AK-47s, and I want to have at least a chance if something like that comes about and I have to defend myself or my family. I don't really see so much as that I'm going to fight the government with it. I think that's going to be kind of impossible. Although we might see some unruly, things happening in our streets going forward. I think we got a big banking problem that's going to explode here pretty soon. And I think that I'm also a believer that I think, eventually if Trump gets reelected, and I think he will by a landslide before all this is said and done and before everything comes out, I think that his main goal that he's going to go after is to try to end the Federal Reserve and go back to sound money. I think that's the big plan of what he's trying to do. And I mean, people say how he's dumb. Orange man, orangutan man is dumb. Trump ain't dumb. He's a good gamesman. He's a good game player. And one thing that makes sense to me is that he hates banks. I mean, think about how many corrupt bankers he's had to deal with over his lifetime. So I don't really know. Look, I don't claim to know really what's going on in the world, but I know one thing: knowledge is power. And the more that you can study and understand about what's going on, the better decisions that you can make. And these shootings, none of them make sense to me. Like, I don't want to believe that everything's a conspiracy. I really don't. I mean, I go into it just like, okay, prove it to me. And I know there's people that can do a lot of tricky stuff with, Photoshop and all that kind of stuff on the internet. But this is, this is not. These are eyewitnesses who are saying, hey, we saw multiple gunmen. They were all dressed all in black. And we've heard that the people like that, eyewitnesses at multiple shootings. Except we never hear it on TV. You only hear it with people who post it on YouTube. They're there. They're interviewing them. I don't know. It's hard to know what's the truth, what's not the truth. I mean, they even have technology now where they can just take a whole bunch of videos that I've made, because now you know the way I pronunciate words, my jaw movement when I say a word, and they could actually computerize it and make a video and make you say something you didn't even say. I mean, think about how scary that is. To where you're trying to get some information on what to do, what's the best plan of action for your family, but you don't even know if the person that is telling you this actually said this. I mean, that's crazy. I mean, that technology is already available. They've already done a test run with Obama. It's all over the internet. You can go look at it. But I think that the connection with all these shooters' fathers is very bizarre to me. It really is, and it doesn't make any sense. And when you put it all under one umbrella, it makes it really hard to believe. I mean, really hard to believe when you think about all the anomalies of everything that's happened, from the magic bullet and the spent shell casings and the guy that's maybe on the grassy knoll and the kind of gun Lee Harvey Oswald was using. And they said he's the lone gunman, except he never stood trial in front of a jury of his peers. And how Jack Ruby just said, I'm going to go in and shoot this guy when he had no connection to him. Well, you going to shoot him because you like the president? No, I think he was connected to the mob. I mean, the whole thing is just dirty. The story doesn't make any sense. The 9/11 story doesn't make any sense to me. And look, and I'm not going into this thinking that they're all conspiracies, because I don't think the Ohio shooting was. I mean, it all adds up to me as being like, I can see all of this, everything makes sense. But nothing in these other shootings makes sense to me. They don't make sense. And if you Google it, or if you try to put it on YouTube to where you say, okay, you just, whatever, Sandy Hook's shooting conspiracy. Well, Google, which owns YouTube, they have an algorithm that will show somebody that's a researcher all of the videos that debunk that. But it's all with lies and made up information. You have to dig to find the other side of that, because that's not what they want you to see. So it's real easy to be fooled when you think you're a smart person, but you are getting fooled, but you don't realize you're getting fooled because you don't know what you don't know. It takes a lot of effort. It really does. I mean, it took me a little bit of effort just to do this research between the shooter's father and this Colin Ross connected to Sidney Gottlieb, who is the head of MK Ultra for the CIA. It took me a little research to figure all this out. They work for this Timberland mental health system, which was shut down in 2018 for all of these corrupt things, pushing drugs, rape, prostitution, abuse. When you put all of the things that we're supposed to believe that happened from all these incidences under one big circus tent, it's impossible to believe. It's impossible to believe. We are for sure, 100% for sure being lied to. And it's time to wake up and do a little research yourself, because if you don't, you're just a sheep. I mean, that's just the truth. Orange and blue collector. It seems like the Dayton shooter's been swept under the rug compared to the El Paso shooting. I think so too. I think the Dayton shooter's getting not nearly as much coverage as what the El Paso shooter's getting. And look, I mean, I really think the Dayton shooter was just a crazy kid. I mean, they knew he was crazy. They had the list. They had all of the horrible things that he had made that he said he wanted to do to people. They knew about this well before he went and committed this heinous crime. I mean, it's terrible. But if you think guns were outlawed, that was going to stop him? He just drove his truck through the front door and probably killed just as many people. These crazy people are going to do stuff like this. And the thing is, we knew about it. We knew it was crazy. And we did nothing about it. This is what some sort of bill I think that Trump wants to draw up. That, you know, when we know about this, when we've seen this letter and this list, that, okay, we also know he has guns. Go get him. Go get him right now. Because he's a danger to himself or people around him. But again, I think that's the reason why they're not reporting on that story, because I think the false flag story is the one that happened in El Paso. Do some research on the one that happened in Paso. Do some research on Las Vegas. It will blow your mind. All of the stupid, unbelievable bullshit that you have to believe to make the official story fit. It is unbelievable. But if you don't go take the time to see it yourself, you're never going to see it summed up in a 60-minute news program while you're cooking dinner. I can promise you that. There's no news station you can trust. None of them. Even Trump's turning on Fox right now. The news is the biggest threat to the American people. Let's get to some more of the comments. Gary Holland, if you ban guns, people buy guns on the black market. I agree, man. I mean, we're what, a 2.8 gun nation? I mean, it's the reason the Emperor of Japan said he would never attack the United States, because there was a gun barrel behind every blade of grass. I mean, I kind of like it that I live in a country where nobody's ever attacked us, because they can't. I mean, you can have balls the size of church bells to attack America on our home soil, and you better be a couple of countries put together if you're going to do that, right? And why? Because they know we're well armed. And we will fight back. Even people who don't have guns, they'll have one in their hand if something like that breaks up, because there's enough of them to go around. I mean, I got a whole bunch myself. I only shoot one. I know people that got 150 guns. You can only pull the trigger on one or two at a time. What you going to do with all the other ones? If there's a real fight going down, you're going to pass them out. We are the militia. So I'm not for changing the Constitution, but I do agree we got to do something. I mean, this is just happening too frequent. We got to do something, but taking away any guns, banning clip sizes, banning pistol grips, the kind of gun you can have, I'm not for any of that. I think if a person is background checked and responsible enough, he ought to be able to own a rocket pellet grenade. I mean, why not? Right? Because I know I ain't gonna kill nobody with a rocket pellet grenade, but I don't even want to own one, because I don't want to be responsible for securing one. I don't. There's too much responsibility, and that's what comes along with guns too. I mean, you got to be responsible owning them. If they ban cattle dog, if they ban guns, millions will become outlaws. I mean, I agree, because there's gonna be a lot of people that don't turn them in. I mean, you look at Kamala Harris; she's president. She's gonna go around knocking on everybody's door. Take your weapons. You know what kind of civil war that would start? I mean, you think you've seen fighting in Venezuela and some of these other countries? Ain't nothing like, I mean, they burning Hong Kong down right now. You know what America would look like if they tried to do something like that? I mean, I just don't see how they can do it. I mean, what if there's like 1,000,000-something hunters in Pennsylvania alone? It's an enormous amount of weapons that are in the borders of the United States. I don't see how they're ever going to be able to ban them. But I do think we need to do something, and I don't know what that something is, but I think we can all agree that it's no fun seeing people getting shot, and that could have just been your family at that Walmart, today, Steel 58 as it was mine, or Cattle Dog, or Argo, or Steven Sumptiff. I mean, it could have been your family just as much as it was mine at that Walmart. And, it's a tragic thing that happens, but the press will lead you to believe that we've got this out of control problem, between Baltimore and Detroit and Chicago, and people are dying like crazy. And they are, it's all true. But the reality is, I was born in 1971. From 71 until now, right now, is the lowest gun murders have ever been. It was the highest in the 90s. The whole Crips, Bloods, that gang violence. There was so much more of it, so much more dope slanging going on the streets of LA and all these inner cities. I mean, lots of people were getting shot. With gun violence way worse during those days than it is now. So the press wants to make it seem like we've got this out of control monster. And the truth is that if you look at the facts, those numbers have come down. And where the places where they've banned guns, the knife stabbings and killing people with a hammer, all that shit went up. So I don't know what the right solution is. I mean, I don't claim to say here's what we should do, but I think we got to do something. But I'm again not against giving up any weapons or any type of weapon that we can already illegally own, especially a semi-automatic weapon. You can have yours with an empty hot barrel. I agree, man. I agree because the rights shouldn't be infringed, and people are going to fight back. I mean, they just are. They're going to fight back. Cattle Dog, yeah, many witnesses said more than one shooter. I agree. And you know what? And we hear that every single time. We've heard many witnesses say that there was one shooter at Sandy Hook, more than one shooter in Las Vegas, more than one shooter at the Garlic Festival, more than one shooter in El Paso, more than one shooter at, I think, even the Aurora shooting. There's lots of people reporting on this, and they say they're wearing all black. I mean, there's people with video cameras on their phones everywhere, and especially at that concert, people had them on all over the place. I mean, you could hear, you didn't even have to be a dumb person, a smart person to hear that you can hear reports of guns going off in multiple locations. There can't be one shooter. Cattle Dog, you've shot a lot of guns. Tell these people in this comment section what a hotel room would look like with 3,500 spent shell casings. I mean, you're talking about curtains burned, carpet burned, and shell casings on the floor that are 2.5 inches deep that burn holes right through your socks and shoes are so hot. Yet this guy got off this many, but when they showed us pictures, they showed us about 15 or 20 spent shell casings and half of his body laying in a small pool of blood. And that's all it was. It was like the neatest, most cleanest murder I've ever seen. This guy was the neatest, most cleanest, tidy mass murder in the history of the world. That's all they ever showed us. I mean, it would look like you couldn't believe if what they say he did really did that. And you could hear there was more shooters, and witnesses were saying there were more shooters, but still, the official story is one shooter. Because you had a corrupt sheriff or that, or the FBI or CIA got to him because they were breathing down his neck when he was doing the press conferences. Nothing is making sense here. It's really not. And it's just time for more people to awake and start questioning what is going on, because this can really get out of hand in a hurry. I really believe there is a deep state. There's some dark, evil forces, some satanic people who really want to see harm done to the United States of America, and they're disguised as wolves in sheep's clothing, wearing nice suit and ties, $2,000, $5,000 suits on Capitol Hill, and they are the sneakiest deep state criminals there are. I mean, they really are. All the way to the FBI, James Comey. I mean, there's so much that is going to happen. I mean, yeah, they let Comey off the hook, but not for everything. That was a compartmentalized charge. He's still on the hook for his FISA lies. So more is going to come out on all of this. I think it'll probably get heated up as we get to the election. But let's just hope and pray that things get back on the right track and the Patriots take back control of this country, because it's gone to a place that I don't think any of us can even recognize anymore. I mean, it really has. Gary Holland, need to save food, water, medicine, batteries, candles, matches, just because you never know what might happen. I agree, man. I've done a little bit of that myself. Some dry goods, put together some gold and some silver, and some ammunition, just in case scenario. I think it's cheap insurance. I mean, I sure hope nothing happens. I mean, I really don't. I hope that there's some master plan, and apparently there is. I mean, if you believe in Q, that there's a master plan that the Patriots are in control of what's going on. They're in control of the financial system. They're going to take down or build a sister system backed by sound money, maybe back to gold and silver, who knows, in the future, and crash this system and bankrupt it, which would explain why the government just keeps raising the debt ceiling and we get more and more into debt. I mean, I think we're to right now, like something stupid, 25, 27 trillion, some dumb number that we're at. I mean, you can't even pay this money back. And I don't think it was ever intended to pay back. I mean, it was the whole point of the dollar. The dollar is a Ponzi scheme. You run a Ponzi scheme till its last breath, and then you crush it and destroy it. And whoever is in the way, you don't really care. You care about you. The bankers care about themselves. I mean, they're evil people. And that's where our country's really got mostly off track. You know, coming out of World War II, and these bankers get together on Jekyll Island. They go to Congress and say, "Hey, you know, let us stabilize the money." And then they put all of their cronies and family and set up all these central banks and all this Federal Reserve and all of the stuff, which are privatized banks. I mean, the Federal Reserve is about as federal as Federal Express. You all know that. It's not a federal thing. They loan money to the United States government. It's an inherent payment back to them because on every dollar, there's like, I don't know, 30, 40 cents of inherent tax. It's automatically going to roll back to them. And every time they print money, quantitative easing, more of it's coming, right? I mean, they just had a rate hike cut or a rate cut at the Federal Reserve. Trump said it wasn't even enough. They're probably going to have another one. Followed by that's going to be QE4, which I predicted 4 years ago, and they're going to print more money in this quantitative easing run than they have in 1, 2, and 3 combined. This one's going to be a mind boggler, and that is going to be when people wake up and say, "Wait a minute, they're just printing a whole bunch of money? Like, doesn't that devalue the money that I have already, that I've already sweated and worked for? What can I do to protect this money?" Well, they're going to do what rich people are doing, which is investing in gold, silver, property, right? Hard assets. Because they don't want to have dollars. What rich people are doing right now is getting into the dollar, staying in the dollar and staying nimble, but they don't want to have too much. They want to have it in hard assets where it's already gone in case this dollar crashes. And it can happen here. And it most likely will happen here. It's almost a mathematical certainty that it has to happen to the dollar. I mean, think about it. In the history of mankind, there have been 700 and I think 60 or 70 fiat currencies, a currency not backed by anything, not backed by gold, not backed by silver like ours used to be. And every one of those currencies has gone to zero. Every single one of them. The average life expectancy of a fiat currency is 27 years. The longest one's ever gone is 49. We became off the gold standard in what, like 71, right? So we're home. We're there. We're at the end, closer to the end of the dollar than we are to the beginning. So I mean, I think that you got to protect at least some of what you have with some hard assets, not depreciating assets, just some hard assets where you're not holding on to paper investments, any type of stock, any type of 401k, IRA. I mean, look, I'm not an investment advisor. I don't have an agree or to, tell you that this is what you should do. I'm not even telling you it is what you should do. I'm just saying I think it's some things you should consider, being the fact that fiat currency has never gone more than 49 years. Why do you think that can't happen here in America? It can. And if Deutsche Bank falls, and I believe they're going to, the biggest mountain of derivatives, they own it. And they are the right arm of JP Morgan, which is kind of coincidental why people think, and it's pretty much able to be proven, that people think JP Morgan has the largest silver stack that's been accumulated at any time in the history of mankind right now. Why? I mean, it's kind of weird that a fire happened about, 5, 6, 7 years ago in New York City underground in a vault that JP Morgan owned. A building out of all concrete and steel. This whole fire comes, 30-some fire trucks, 50 police cars show up, never see any smoke. Supposedly what was down there was records. And then that bank, that vault, got sold to China. Something's about to go down. I don't know what it is. I can't put my finger on it, but I think it's time to really pay attention. I mean, it really is, because we are in some unique times like we've never seen in this country before, because we're at the end of the petrodollar. Saudi Arabia is not making people, countries, change their dollars or change their, say the yuan. They're not making them change into dollars before they sell them oil. That all got eliminated when the BRICS Bank got founded. It funded it with $150 billion. It was like Iran, Kazakhstan, India, Russia, China, Brazil. Right? They funded this with a lot of money because they're going to try to de-dollarize their countries. This is going to cause a major problem with our dollar, because our dollar is not going to be as much in demand. Now, right now, our dollar is still by far the safest dollar that you can have. It's the safest money that you can have. It's still the world reserve currency. I mean, gold has outpaced tons of other world currencies, just not ours yet. We're going to be the last one to go. But I'll tell you what, I'd rather be 2,000 days early than 1 day late. Because when this happens, it's going to happen like a thief in the night, and you're never even going to see it coming. So it's hard to imagine the unimaginable. It was hard for the people the night before the market crashed in 1929 to go to bed and believe that, man, when I wake up tomorrow morning, the whole world's going to be different because of this. And it happened. And it can happen again, and it will happen again, because Ponzi schemes are a mathematical certainty, and that's exactly what the dollar is. It's not backed by anything. It's backed by guns. We're like the bully on the playground, right? Trying to steal lunch money. If you don't, we're going to beat you up. So that's what's going on here in this country. Military tribunals, Gitmo. Whew, I hope so. I hope so, Cattle Dog. I mean, I really hope that we do get to military tribunals and we do put these people away in Gitmo. And I mean, how awesome would it be if it was just televised? I mean, you think about how much they could just put that on pay-per-view. I'd buy that in a second. And if they televised all these military tribunals and court hearings, I mean, they're not going to do that. I mean, there's lots of people out there that believe, that George Bush Sr. and John McCain didn't die of natural causes. They were put to death and then just have this funeral so people, loved it. It was kind of like a plea bargain. They agreed to it. I mean, I don't know if that happened, but there's lots of people who say that this happened, and they have a lot of good, reasonable facts on why it could have happened. I don't know if it did or if it didn't. I don't know if George Bush and John McCain died of natural causes. I think one thing to be alert right for now is, do we see reports start to come out about Bill and Hillary Clinton having sicknesses? Because if that's the case, then that's highly suspicious, because that's what's happened with the other two. And I think that they're in a rock and a hard spot. I think Slick Willie's in a jam, and he's in a good one this time. And I think the country's turned on Hillary. So those two are not going to have public favorable opinion. I really don't think that they will. And if they're, really implicated in this Epstein deal, if there's video, if there's some really damning evidence, and supposedly there is, things are about to be, it's about to be a rodeo. For real. Because it's going to get interesting. Anyway, thanks to everybody joining the stream tonight. I didn't really want to go much more than an hour. This is the OG Bronknuts, 719 West. I appreciate everybody who shows up to just leave comments in my comment section. I'm definitely going to go through it and watch it all again. I really appreciate you guys just taking the time out of your day and spending an hour with me. I'm out. See you tomorrow, suckers.